Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Thank you so much for joining us today for this Parkinson Social Network event. My name is Angela Robb. I'm one of the board members for Parkinson Social Network. And we welcome you all to this event. Apologize for the delay in starting, but we're getting it all going here. David, do you want to introduce us to or let people know who we are?
Yes, welcome on behalf of the Board of Directors of Parkinson Social Network. PSN, as we are affectionately known, was founded by a number of individuals who have a personal interest in Parkinson's disease, either because they are afflicted with Parkinson's or because they are care partners for family members or friends with Parkinson's. We are a 501c3 charity, and we have 0 staff. Everything that we do in terms of our meetings and our webinars and our published material is done by the volunteer staff. At this time, I'd like to introduce Carl and Angela Robb, who are 2 of our founders and board members, who will talk a little bit about today's speaker and then introduce him, and away we can go.
Thank you so much, David. We
Thanks,
really
Dave.
appreciate it. Just a little housekeeping, folks. If you want to ask Mike a question, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Just type your question in there and we will make sure Mike answers it either during the presentation or towards the end of the presentation. This is kind of interactive, and but we'll let Mike go through some of his slides and then be showing us some tips and stuff. If you would like, you can turn the transcript on and off with the live transcript button at the bottom of the screen as well. And Mike is gracious enough that after the presentation, he's going to share his slides with us, so you don't feel like you have to write everything down as we go along. So, and we are recording this, so we will make it available to you later for future viewing. Carl, would you do the honors and introduce Mike?
I'd love to. Good morning, Mike. Dr. Michael Braitsch, PT, DPT, is a licensed doctor of physical therapy, a lifelong martial artist, a former amateur fighter, internationally certified fight referee, and a contributing faculty member of the University of St. Augustine School of Health Sciences in Dallas, Texas. He founded Tribe Wellness LLC February 2017 to change the way physical therapy
It's structured for people with chronic and progressive conditions.
Thank you.
Empowering people to better participate in community wellness. That's actually how Carl and I met Mike. A friend of ours was one of his attendees at his classes in Dallas, Texas. And we went with her one day to see the studio and met Mike and his dog, who was the greeter. And then we also met Mike on the road at some Davis Finney Victory Summits. So very impressed with the way. Wish he were in Northern Virginia so we too could participate in his classes.
I wish you were cloned.
Yeah, exactly, that too.
You're too kind.
So without further ado, Carl, unless there's something else you want to add, let's give Mike the stage.
I just want to say I really enjoyed I encourage you to join Mike's classes online. I encourage you to check his classes out at Tribe Wellness.
Thanks, Mike, for being here
Thanks,
today, and you've got the floor.
Hey, thanks for having me. My name is Mike Braitsch. I'm a physical therapist. And more than that, I just love exercise. And I think I'm one of the luckiest people on earth because I get to work with great people doing what I love, which carries its own stresses, but is absolutely worth it. Especially when I get to do things like this. So, you know, I specialize in treating physical patients in physical therapy with treating their symptoms with Parkinson's disease and other forms of Parkinsonism too. And we try to do things a little bit differently here at Tribe Wellness because, my previous experience in other clinics is people do really, really well when they're in therapy. And then at some point they meet their therapy goals or they run out of visits for coverage, which is less common now, thank goodness, because of Medicare changes. But then, somebody like me, I'd say, well, go and be active. And people would often say, well, where do I go, man? And so that's what led to our group here in Dallas, Tribe Wellness. We try to use the group, the tribe, as the mainstay of keeping people active and connected, just like you're doing with the Parkinson Social Network. And then we try to use one-on-one physical therapy as a way to get people to better participate in the group and in life outside of the group. So the two, I think, really go hand in hand. And I'm excited to talk to you today about fall prevention because, as many of you probably know, this coming week is National Fall Prevention Awareness Week. So my plan for today is this. We're going to look at some things about fall prevention. In general, we'll look at some things more specific to people with Parkinson's disease. And I'm absolutely and wholeheartedly obsessed and in love with the Chinese martial art of Tai Chi. There have been very few forms of exercise that have been as heavily researched for balance training as Tai Chi. And I have yet to see one that's been validated by research as consistently as Tai Chi for helping people out with balance and coordination. So I'd like to do one single Tai Chi technique with you, and I think you'll see the layers that are involved. My request with all this stuff is anything we do physically, I sure hope you're safe because you're wherever you are watching this and participating, and I'm here. In the clinic, I've got the ability to put a gait belt on somebody if their balance is off and hang with them and help them stay upright. I don't have that opportunity with you as a webinar participant. But I got in here a great old proverb, fall down 7 times, get up 8, because we know falls happen. We'd like to reduce their incidence. We'd like to prevent them. But the best thing you can do when and if you fall is get up. That of course assumes you don't have a fracture or some major issue, but the mentality in this quote is an important one because I think it's often a common thing to get stressed about falls, to get worried. And some amount of concern is healthy, but at some point it kind of dips off into not healthy or helpful. And so I wanted to remind everybody, we can try to keep getting up and facing these things. Why is this important? Well, this is important because according to the National Council on Aging, as of this month, they're saying every 11 seconds, an older adult who they define as 65 and above. I know that doesn't apply to everybody, but they're seen in an emergency department for a fall-related injury. And the reality is, some people I see when I first meet them in therapy, they think maybe this is just part of getting old. I'm lucky enough to age. Maybe this just comes with the territory. And the reality is, falls are not a normal part of aging. A lot of them are preventable, and we're going to dive deeply into that. I think you're going to see, I've got a ton of slides here. And the reason I'm so glad that Angela mentioned we can get these out to you is I don't anticipate that we're going to get through all these slides. I got really trigger happy with the slides. I got really excited putting this thing together. And gosh, on the drive over to my office here in Dallas this morning, I thought, there's no earthly way we're going to get through all this material. And why should we? We should be able to focus on what matters and move forward. Anyway, so we're going to go through some fall prevention tips from the National Council on Aging. We're going to go through some stuff that I found with research and some things that I found clinically in treating patients on trying to improve their balance and coordination. And we're also going to get to try some of this stuff out. It'll be awesome. So one great thing, as all of you know, and this webinar is proof of it, is we live in an era of information. And one great resource that is easily attainable for anyone is this 6 steps to fall prevention from the National Council on Aging. I added that I took certain liberties. They don't call it easy and effective. I think they're easy and effective. I'll let you be the judge though. The first one is you want to find a good balance and exercise program. And that's true for anybody. If you're on this webinar, chances are you're facing life with Parkinson's disease or some form of Parkinsonism. And so you've probably heard over and over and over and over why exercise is so helpful. And hopefully you're hearing that over and over because it's important. There's no medication out there that has the benefits of exercise. If there were, probably Carl and Angela and I would find a way to put it in a bottle or a pill and make billions and buy our own islands near Hawaii or something. And also donate a tremendous fortune to great causes like the Parkinson Social Network and the Dave Spinney Foundation and all our friends at the Parkinson Foundation. You know, the list goes on. But the biggest deal that I hope you take from this is exercise is helpful. It's helpful because anytime that you're on your feet, weight bearing against gravity, you're giving your body a chance to improve your balance, both through input going up to the brain, signals that are received, as well as control of your body against gravity. In addition to this, though, there are a number of specific types of exercise that are helpful. And, you might say, well, why does this matter? There are few forms of research that are more powerful than a systematic review and meta-analysis. It's like a study of studies, and this looked at 18 different studies. This is a research study that came out in 2013 that showed, hey, one form of exercise that's incredibly helpful for anybody with Parkinson's disease is aerobic exercise. So anything that gets your heart rate up or gives you a moderate or intense level of physical activity. Why is that helpful? Well, it not only improves your motor action. We know a lot of people with Parkinson's have slowed action, slow starting, or sometimes slow stopping, slow reactions, that phenomenon called bradykinesia. And exercise makes those muscles more excitable. It makes your brain more excitable. And it does that in a number of ways. Some of it's you get improved blood flow to the brain. Some of it's the brain gets more oxygenated, so it's more easily awakened and signals are more easily sent. You get more out of your medication. And that has this huge cascade throughout the body that makes it easier to activate your muscles and move. It makes it easier to register input signals of where your body is in space. And also when you think about things like dystonia and rigidity, those things that cause stiffness with Parkinson's, people, and hopefully you've worked out if you're watching this and you feel it, and if not, you're in for a treat, because almost immediately after starting an exercise session, people feel a lot of that stiffness kind of wash away, which makes it easier for them to control their balance and control their gait pattern, their walking. And it's important. Why? Because, not just one workout matters, but the stuff we do all the time matters. So if you haven't checked out the book, Atomic Habits, the author, James Clear, has this great quote about the quality of our lives depending on the quality of our habits. And I feel like there's nothing more true when it comes to exercise and Parkinson's disease. We're here to talk about balance, but exercise is probably the single best thing you can do to help improve your balance. The question is, how do you do it safely? And what goes into it? And with every exercise program, doesn't have to be every single session, but every program should include some of these 3 key components around the sides: flexibility, strength, and balance. And at the core of it all, it's a little off center. I think I could have done a better job centering that circle, but at the core of it all, I hope you see every element of this should and could include some degree of intensity, meaning a little bit more intense work than you would normally choose on your own. And there are all kinds of heart rate ideas for that, or perceived exertion scales for that. But the general idea is it's easy to quit on your own. It's easy to fall into the mindset of, I've probably done enough. And if you can go just a little bit harder than you think, things go better. And in terms of balance, getting just a little bit outside of your comfort zone, but still safe, is really where the brain has the best chance of reorganizing signals that are associated with balance and motor control. So, what are some key elements here? Axial rotation, moving the spine, twisting, turning the hips. That helps because that helps to improve spinal mobility, getting rid of some of that stiffness. It helps to promote more weight shifting. That matters because when we're walking, most of the time we're on one foot. The other one's in the air getting swung to advance forward. Most of the time we're walking, or a greater percentage of the time we're walking, is on single limb stance. And you can improve your balance and control of single limb stance by weight shifting, which can come with rotation, or shifting a little bit more weight onto one leg, a little bit more onto the other. Also, we know these big dynamic movements that are common in things like the LSVT big program, in boxing programs that are so common and popular for Parkinson's disease, in things like power moves, which is Dr. Becky Farley's Parkinson Wellness Recovery Program. Very cool stuff for working on big dynamic movements. And these other 2 thoughts here are unbelievably important, which is a lot of folks that I see in the clinic or when they first come to class, if they're active, a lot of them are walking, which is fantastic, but they're mostly just moving their body forward. And we know that real life happens and balance problems happen a lot of times when you've got to change directions. So if you can move in multiple planes of motion, not just straight forward, if you can practice stepping in multiple directions and maintaining your balance, things go a heck of a lot better. And we know that there's magic in community programs for that. The CDC has this great thought process or series of questions to ask yourself if you're looking at a community program, because there's certainly in abundance, especially now that, one of the best things that's come out of the pandemic is the ability to look at so many things online and participate through Zoom. A lot of folks in our group love our online classes because they don't even have to get in the car and drive somewhere. They can just roll out of bed, hopefully not actually roll out of bed, but get out of bed and join in on one of our groups. My concern with groups is always to make sure that they're high quality and they're run by people who know what they're doing. And so these questions, I think, are very helpful because you want to know, does somebody have some training? And are you going to get some education about what you're doing or why it helps with fall prevention? heck, is it even going to help build your confidence? Because I know if you've fallen once, that's a risk on its own, a risk factor, a well-documented risk factor that means you're at a greater risk of falls, not even just because you've fallen once, but because then the fear of falling can set in. And hopefully with a program that's designed to help with fall prevention and people who are skilled, you can build some of that confidence back, and you can reduce injuries and risk of falls. There are so many programs out there. And so this is just a small sample. I took this from the APTA, the American Physical Therapy Association. It's got a geriatrics section, which one of the reasons I like that is we've got evidence-based programs, so things that have good research behind them that they're recommending. So you're not just relying on some exercise leader's idea or impressions or thought process, but you're relying on things that have been proven through research. Otago is a program that is growing in popularity. Matter of Balance. SAIL, which is the Stay Active and Independent for Life. Stepping. There are all kinds of Tai Chi programs out there. And, with any of these, just my suggestion is watch a class before you try it. See if you feel like you can enjoy the group or the workout, and then give it a shot and see how it goes. If not, there are even a lot of apps now. And this one called Clock Yourself has a whole lot of potential. And I'm not getting paid to say this. This is a free webinar. I have no vested interest in Clock Yourself, but I just downloaded it last week after reading about it from the APTA's geriatrics section. And I'd seen it mentioned in other neurological journals. And this Clock Yourself app, it's designed by some physical therapists with input from a whole lot of folks in the rehab world. I think it cost me $3 or maybe $2.95 to download on the Google Play App Store because I'm cheap and I use an Android instead of an iPhone. Don't judge me, but it's a nice one because it has really simple all the way to advanced drills. And, I bring it up because there's so many things like that you can work through or you can have access to.
Hey, Mike, we have a question from the audience. Can I jump in and ask?
Yeah, have at it.
Okay, so the question is, should you do boxing if you have osteoporosis?
Hey, that's a great question. I would say if you have osteoporosis, you should absolutely exercise. And you know that, or you wouldn't be asking. And that's important because with osteoporosis, your osteoblastic activity, the building of more bone tissue, is not occurring at the rate as osteoclastic activity, the decay or degradation of bone tissue. And the beautiful thing with exercise and osteoporosis is just by controlling your body against gravity, you're improving bone density. You probably want to talk with your physician, of course, about vitamin D and that type of thing. I know that's not the question, but it's always worth noting. But with any exercise, you're going to get a gentle pull. Muscles are connected to bone by tendon. And when you exercise, those tendons exert a gentle pull on bones, which can help promote more osteoblastic activity, more bone tissue density. So boxing is certainly something you could do. I'd want to make sure it's with a qualified instructor. I'd want to make sure also that you're not doing high impact aspects of it. I'll give you an example. We've got some folks who have osteoporosis in our boxing groups, and a lot of them will do the footwork, the leg strengthening, and instead of punching a punching bag, they'll do shadow boxing, where they're still getting the workout of boxing, but they don't have that high impact, which might put a little extra strain on their joints. If they're feeling really good with that activity, then we might give them some boxing gloves to wear, because that just gives a little bit more resistance to those shoulders. there are a lot of good forms of exercise for osteoporosis, and the general theme is low impact for one, and then the second is weight bearing or moving against gravity. So I'd say in a perfect world, probably something like Tai Chi would be better for osteoporosis because it is very low impact. I'm obviously very biased. Qigong, which is another Chinese internal art of movement with breathing. Yoga certainly could be, as long as you've got a teacher looking out for you and you have regular conversations with them. Pilates or dancing could be helpful. Feldenkrais could be helpful. Rehab-based programs like LSVT Big or Power Moves could be helpful. The general idea is no matter what you're doing, if you have osteoporosis, do it with some supervision. Does that make sense? I think so. Hopefully that helps.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I think that's good.
Tip number 2, some of these I'm going to talk a lot more about than others. And number 1 is probably the one I'm most passionate about. Number 2 is number 2 for me, which is talk to your healthcare provider about falls. And the reason for that is you can get in a lot of clinics, regardless of people's specialty, whether it's an orthopedic doctor or physical therapist, a general practitioner, family practice doctor, some sort of rehab setting, you can get a quick fall screening or assessment in a lot of different environments. And that way you can get an idea of what your risk is for falls and have somebody using proven methods that are backed by research to tease out which element of your balance is most affected. And that's where a PT can do wonders for you, a physical therapist, because that's, the entry-level degree to practice physical therapy now is a doctorate. So there's a lot of training that goes into it instead of maybe just like a weekend workshop or something like that. This is a wordy slide, but it shows why it's helpful to have somebody with some qualifications check you out, because these are conditions that, I don't know if I can move this menu. Sorry. These are conditions that make you more likely to fall. If you already have some lower body weakness, I know that's really common for a lot of people I see. Vitamin D deficiency, your doctor could do your blood panels like they should do annually to see how your vitamin D levels are. If you already have any problems with walking or balance, we know that's common with Parkinson's disease. Some of these other things, though, are easily overlooked, but it's really helpful to think about medication and the reason your providers are asking for all the medications and supplements you're on is sometimes, as you know, you can have conflicting effects or even side effects that increase your risk of falling. Vision problems are not just common in sports. I say that because football is back and oh my goodness, we see that on the regular basis. But vision problems are a big deal because they affect your balance. Visual input is 1/3 of the number of inputs for balance information that your brain uses. So one of the 3 big systems. If your vision is off, that can, as you probably have felt if you have some balance impairments, it can play a major role in negating your balance because it's hard to see where you're going. It's hard to see what you're stepping onto. I know a lot of folks that I see after they have their cataracts surgeries done feel a heck of a lot better, or a lot of folks that have vision problems, if they decide, you know what, I'm finally going to start wearing the glasses that have been prescribed to me, it makes a big difference. Footwear is a big deal, and we'll get into that too. And home hazards are probably the single most preventable issue that can cause falls. And so we'll dig into some of that too in a second. If I can advance these slides. Yeah.
Dr. Mike, can you talk a little bit about hydration?
Yeah. Yeah, I sure can. It's tough to give recommendations on how much water everybody should have each day. But I can tell you, most people that I see in physical therapy and in our group programs are not drinking enough. I've read varying numbers, but I think a good baseline people like to use is at least 64 ounces of water each day. And some people I see, if they haven't been active for a while, or if they're chronically dehydrated, they'll say, well, why would I do that? That means I'm going to have to go to the bathroom all the time. And it sounds kind of smart alecky, but my response is, well, you know, that way you're getting your steps in, you're getting some transfers on and off the couch, you're getting some more activity. But I think when people are dehydrated, it's so easy, even if you didn't have Parkinson's, if you're dehydrated, it's so easy to get more lightheaded. You have lower blood volume. So those things like orthostatic hypotension, where you get really lightheaded when you rise from a chair or you sit up from laying down, those are much worse when you're dehydrated. So hydration is a big deal. There is such a thing as too much water, but I haven't run into a patient yet where that's been a problem. Now when I say that, who knows what will happen, but
And Mike, we did have one other question from the audience, and somebody was mentioning that they wanted to, can you talk about neck exercises for people with limited, I think it's range of motion, ROM?
yeah, limited range of motion, neck exercises. The general rule is gentle, big, and controlled in all directions. And I think if somebody's having problems with their neck, with their cervical spine, there's probably some component of muscle tightness that's contributing to that. I think I should put that on this slide too. That's another reason to go see a physical therapist, because they might need to do some manual therapy, some soft tissue work on those muscles, or maybe there's some joint motion that they can help guide better with their hands, and then follow it up with big movements in each direction. So, the general idea, a great Tai Chi warm up is we tip the chin towards the chest. We do big circles, almost like if you had a marker on your nose, trying to make big circles that are as round as you can, all the way around and all the way back. We try to turn side to side over and over. We nod up and down over and over, and we side bend over and over. In our warm-ups for Tai Chi class, we typically do each of those 10 times in each direction. In physical therapy, a lot of times people with impaired movement or range of motion in their necks need to do a really simple chin tuck too, which is, if you think about your head, forward head is really common posture. If you think about your head being like a drawer in the kitchen, if you can close that drawer by drawing the chin in, not down, but in, and holding it, that can help to elongate the spine, take some pressure off some of those cervical vertebrae and discs. And there's a lot more to that, but I do want to move through some more of these slides and then see if we can take some more questions. This we can fly past. We talked about reviewing medications. That's a big deal. Please do that. Getting your vision checked. We talked about that. That's a big deal. Please do that regularly. Because for inputs for balance, we talked about how vision is one of the major inputs, but there are two other inputs that probably need to be trained, and we do these a lot in physical therapy. Proprioception, which is that idea of where your body is in space, and then your vestibular system, the deep inner ear, which helps to detect movement side to side, up and down, or how you're positioned relative to the room around you if things are moving. If you're moving, training that vestibular system comes into play. And sometimes we'll have eye exercises where people are jumping their visual focus from one place to another. Point is, in saying all of this, without getting too off topic, you want to train all these inputs for balance. But if you can't see, that's a really big problem. And if you can work around it by going to see an optometrist, an ophthalmologist, things go better that make it easier to train these other two systems. Home safety is the 5th of 6 big points from the National Council on Aging. And these are obvious, but warrant some quick discussion. Loose rugs, they're common. If you get them out, that's one less thing to slip on. People trip all the time, it seems like, over things like power cords. If you can secure them somewhere, or like for your phone, if you can get those wireless charging things that you put the phone on, it just goes better. In the bathroom, non-slip bath mats, and even those non-slip tub liners are very helpful. Cleaning spills immediately should go without saying, but you'd be surprised. I've seen some very dicey situations that have come from not cleaning up a spill, or maybe allowing a potty training puppy to use the full house when maybe they should just use one part of the house, can create, any liquid on the floor is a real hazard. It's easy to slip on things like all these Amazon boxes, or boxes that are coming in our mail now that a lot of people have been getting more deliveries, or old newspapers or trash. But one of the simplest things that I think people neglect is ample lighting in the home. And night lights make a big difference. But I got to tell you, there are people I've run into who say, I don't want a night light because I don't want to wake up my spouse or keep them up. And just recently, it turns out there's a whole field of these products. Just recently, I learned, and you can look on Amazon or a whole bunch of other places, there are motion sensor light strips that you can get for $25 or less and install them along the bottom of your bed. Why does that matter? Let's imagine your medication is lowest when you're in bed. It's easiest for you to stumble or have some problems when you first get up out of bed to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. If you've got a motion sensor strip that's on the bottom of your bed, when your feet touch the floor, in theory, that light would come on, and it's positioned low enough where it's going to illuminate the floor around you, and hopefully in a way that doesn't wake up your partner, if you have a partner, and also hopefully in a way that's not overwhelming to your eyes when you first wake up. I just thought that was the coolest thing. One of our folks at the tribe was traveling in Europe recently and said that happened in every hotel room he stayed in I forget what country. I want to say it was in Spain, but that could be wrong. Regardless, it opened my eyes to this technology, easy, simple modification, motion sensor lighting that you can get for under the bed. Holy cow, it's a game changer. Look into it. The last thing they suggest from the National Council on Aging is talking to your family members to enlist their support. Why? Some of these home modifications are probably easily done if you get help. But also, if you're like me, you get busy, you forget stuff. It's good to have people reminding you. Some people say, I don't want one more person on my case about things I need to do, but that just means those people care about you. So family or friends can make a big difference in trying to put some of these things into action. Real quickly, I want to talk about footwear too, because sometimes I see people who say, footwear, wearing shoes makes me off balance. And when I hear that, what I know is here's someone who probably because of Parkinson disease needs to recalibrate their strength and their proprioceptive awareness of their body and space. Shoes are usually not the cause of balance problems. I've got on there a picture of a high heel because sometimes shoes can be the problem, but most often shoes are not the cause of balance problems because they can help you grip the floor better and protect your feet. I see a lot of folks who, in place of shoes, want to come even to an exercise class in Crocs or in slippers. Why? Because they're easy to put on. I get that. But now there's so many advances in shoe technology. You can get things that replace your laces that are made of silicone that make every shoe a slip-on. Nike doesn't pay me to say this, but they have a great technology that they've put out called Fly Ease, which makes putting shoes on and taking them off really easy. Some of them have a big zipper you can pull that opens up the back of the heel. Others have easy on and off technology for stomping into the shoe and kicking it off or taking it off. And that's just a few examples. There's so many now that if you're having trouble, I'd even do a quick Google search of shoes that are easy to don, which means take on or put on, or doff, which means take off. And you'll find a ton of options out there. Plus, with a lot of places now, you can take them back if they don't fit. And another easy thing that I think is preventable with footwear is sometimes I see people wearing shoes that are the wrong size, that place them at a higher risk of falls. And they're wearing them because they have special needs for their feet, like a bunion, for example. But you can find shoes that have a wide enough toe box now. You just sometimes need to ask at the store or do some research before buying a shoe. And a lot of them are still really affordable. But if you've got a shoe that has a good depth of the toe box, there's more room for your feet. If you've got a shoe that has more width in the toe box, there's more room for your feet. So that means if you get the right type of shoe, you don't need to get it 2 or 3 or 4 sizes too big, which puts you tripping or all over those shoes. And I see some people who maybe want to do minimalist shoes because they've read about the health benefits. That's probably good if you're not already having a balance problem. Usually support shoes are better for folks as we age, as opposed to a real cushioned shoe. A support shoe can give you a little bit more input that where you're stepping. And there are even inserts that you can get that ramp up your sensory input now on your feet if you have things like neuropathy and that kind of stuff. For balance, this is probably the last slide I want to get through here, which is just common observations when it comes to Parkinson-related balance problems. I can't tell you how many people I see when they come to the clinic or to some community event. They're getting out of a car, they've got a drink in one hand, they've got a purse or a bag in another. They're also trying to navigate use of an assistive device like a walker or a cane. If possible, emptying those hands of contents makes it a lot easier to get where you're going. And there are ways to do that. Maybe use a backpack, maybe ask for help. And along those lines, I feel like, especially for people who freeze, which is a deep topic we could spend a lot of time on, but if you have freezing of gait or festinating of gait, where those feet are moving really fast, it gets easy to get caught up in trying to do too many things. If you can break it down and do one thing at a time, people that I see that fall a lot of times with Parkinson's have pretty good balance overall, but if they get distracted while they're doing something, maybe they're reaching for an object out of a high shelf and somebody says something to them, they turn to look, and next thing you know, there's a fall that was preventable. If you can focus on one thing at a time, it makes a big difference. And you could even do cognitive training to boost your brain's ability to do more, through dual task training, to not get as distracted, or to boost your ability to handle those distractions. I run into a lot of folks too who say, I want to work on balance. Should I ride my stationary bike? Your bike is good for exercise. It's good for your heart and lungs, but it's probably not as helpful for balance. weight-bearing activity, holding your body up against gravity is a bigger deal. Also, practicing starting and stopping is a big deal. A lot of times it's easy to kind of take advantage of momentum and kind of fling your arms around. One of the things I love about Tai Chi is with techniques, there's a definitive start point and stop point. And since that part of the brain that's most affected by Parkinson's disease, the basal ganglia, affects starting and stopping big movements, the more you can practice starting a motion, stopping that motion, and then with control, starting fresh, the better, because you're strengthening connections in the brain. We talked just very briefly about dual task interventions. We talked briefly about freezing. I think for freezing also, if there's a tight space in your home that you commonly freeze in, that's a good target to try to plan for. Meaning you might be able to strategically place a handle or grab bar somewhere. You might be able to make sure that place is clear of objects that you could trip over. Or as you approach that space, you can try to take a deep breath and plan for where your step is going to go. I see a lot of folks who use a walker for support also and place themselves at a greater risk of falls because they don't stay close enough to it. It's too far out ahead of them. Or when they're using it, they're up on their tiptoes. And I'd say heels on the ground, because that makes a big difference in fall risk. Last, there's no time to be in a rush. I had a patient say that, and it's something a meditation teacher told me years ago, because we know when you're stressed, Parkinson's symptoms ramp up, which makes you at a much higher risk of falls or stumbles. If you're not in a rush, and if you take your time, and a lot of you, if you've had any freezing or festinating or balance problems, you know this. When you're not in a rush, things go better. So as tough as it is, if people want you to go somewhere, you're in a crowded place, I'd say take your time. Sometimes in the clinic, we talk about pretending you're walking on the catwalk or on the runway. I've arrived. Now I'm going to take some steps. And I know that sounds kind of cheesy and a little crazy, but it tends to be the faster strategy, taking your time.
Mike, we did have one question came up, was about LSVT big. So could you talk a little bit about what the strategies are in LSVT big that can help with?
Yeah. In fact, since we're running close to our time ending, what I want to do, I'll talk about that while we try some Tai Chi, because they're very similar. And I'm going to switch my camera.
Great.
I'm going to promise to you, don't worry, I'm going to make sure you get a copy of these slides, okay?
Great.
I'm going to stop my screen share. I'm going to try to, I think I'm spotlighted.
You are, yeah.
Good. Okay. And I just want to move this back just a touch. So hopefully not make you motion sick in the process. Okay. LSVT big focuses on big movements, big dynamic movements, because we know with Parkinson's, it's so easy for movements to become small, rapid, and automated. And the more you can focus on using that intentional thought, that power of intent that a lot of people like my friend Samantha Ellenberry speak about at the Parkinson Voice Project, if you can apply focus, it brings your cognition and the power of executive function of the brain to those movements, which means you can bypass some of those symptoms. So the big program focuses on things like big stepping. And when you're taking those big steps, doing it with good postural awareness and trying to open up your chest, keeping your head up and back up. I'm going to even add a little bit better light here. Sorry. I hope. I don't know if that makes any difference for you at all, but whatever. Also, the big program is wildly successful because It's easily modified. You can do these exercises in a chair if you need to. You can do them using a chair for additional support if you needed to. And those same exercises train proprioceptive input, that knowledge of where is my body in space. One of the things we like to do in Tai Chi is we like to do a lot of weight shifting and stance work also. And if you've got a safe place to do it and you feel safe, I want to invite you to do this with me. I'll mirror you like you're looking at a strange mirror. If you need something to support you, hang on to it. But we like to step out on the heel and then slowly flatten both feet as we shift the weight. The front knees bent, the back legs straight, head up and back up. This is a stance called Gong Bu stance. And some people call it bow stance. The beauty of it is shifting into this stance requires a lot of control and awareness, as well as leg strength and postural control. And then coming out of it, sitting back, picking up the toes and stepping back. It looks just like a motion from the LSVT Big program, exercise number 5, coming out of this stance into Shibu stance, cat stance. So I like to do a lot of weight shifting like this, where we step out a little wider than shoulder width on the heel, heel down, toes up, shifting the weight forward, keeping the hips forward, the head up, the back up, the chest out, and then sitting back, picking up the toes and stepping back. And I'll tell you, even just this stance work, you can feel, oh, wow, you improve that awareness. Oh, wow, where's my center of mass? Is it inside my base of support with an upright posture? Or am I leaning? If I'm leaning, I know it because I feel more weight on the front foot. I want to be up tall and have that upright posture. And that's where, the martial arts nature of Tai Chi came into play, because you want to see something coming at you if you're being attacked, and you want to be able to respond. But also with Tai Chi, we've got this meditative approach where if you fall in love with these techniques, and if you do this stuff with some support, you're able to improve that leg strength and balance. You see, I've got a railing here. Some people can use their countertop or a real sturdy couch or something. Other people like to do this really close to a wall. So if you feel real wobbly, you can still kind of lean into it and hang on to something, I hope. But this is something that can be easily done. And you say, well, hang on a second. Is there more to it? Sure, that's a foundational stance, but there are arm motions in Tai Chi. And if you need to sit for a second, we can do one from the chair. That footwork we just did is common in a lot of techniques. I'm going to teach you hand motions for one that uses that footwork, which is called brush the knee and palm strike. So we can take the left hand here. I know it's my right, but it should be on the same side as your left. We can bring that fingertips up to nose level, midline of the chest. We can drop that arm down, clearing the waist, and park it at the side with the palm down and the fingertips straight ahead. So we're just blocking down and clearing the waist. Blocking down and clearing the waist. With LSVT Big, with Tai Chi, with any form of exercise, repetition matters, because over time, doing the same thing over and over, it becomes more automatic, and then you can kind of add to it to add that cognitive focus. The other hand points forward and reaches forward. Points forward and reaches forward. I want to leave at least another minute for questions, but we can try the hand work here. Brush the knee and palm strike. Front hand blocks down, back hand points and presses forward. You see with this type of motion, I got a bunch of low budget videos if you like this kind of stuff, or you could join our class or find any number of resources. but you see how you can break this stuff down into pieces. There's eye movement following the hand. That's vestibular training and visual training. There's awareness of postural control. That's proprioceptive training. There's flexibility that comes with the movement that forces you to improve your strength and motor control. So there's so much that's available in something as simple as stepping out and moving an arm. And if you do it over and over, like we do in our techniques, you can have a heck of a lot of fun. And you can even then add some breathing, and all kinds of other great things are available. I'm sure there are questions. I'm okay running over if you need it.
Mike, I have a question. I was wondering if you might expand on how Tai Chi can help your thought and lower anxiety.
Yeah. So in Tai Chi and in Qigong, as you know, Carl,
Yes.
you coordinate your breath with movement. Same with most mindfulness-based forms of exercise. But if you're really focusing on the technique, first of all, that's a form of meditation because you're directing your focus to something. And that can keep the mind from racing and wandering into the future or the past. It stays in the right now, which is what all the great mystics of all religions allude to. But also the deep belly breathing that we do in Tai Chi, in Qigong, in yoga, and so many forms of exercise helps to remove cortisol, which is the stress hormone, which can ramp up symptoms too. So some of it is the meditative aspect, some of it is the breathing, but some of it too is just developing a new skill gives you its own hit of dopamine or reward, right? You feel, gosh, I'm doing something a little better as a result of practice. And that's a cool thing in the face of Parkinson's disease, which we know normally takes function to be able to maintain or potentially improve function is a big win. And learning stuff along the way, it just hopefully reinforces that personal power that people have.
Dr. Mike, we did have one other question that was in the chat, and I'm not sure if it's specifically fall related, but you will answer that. The person wanted to know about a role for specially trained service or assistance dogs. Do you have any comments about that?
Oh gosh, I don't know as much about that. Here's what I know, okay? I know, for example, one patient I work with has a specially trained service dog that she can give a command to, which is brace. And that dog is huge. It's a big, I don't even know the breed. I want to say it's like an Anatolian Shepherd. It's a big dog, and it'll tense up and she can stabilize herself on that dog. Now, depending on the size of the person, size of the dog, that might not be doable, right? But also other people I know that have had service animals, as long as it's not something they'll trip over, there's value to having a buddy, a service animal, because that can help with stress and anxiety, which can also help reduce symptoms. So the question just becomes, is it a dog that's, well-trained? We know not all dogs are well-trained, or even well-trained dogs are still not always well-behaved dogs. But the question is, what kind of risks or problems does it bring up? And I'm sure you can, with your care team, figure that out. But it's certainly worth looking into. And they're not service dogs, but my new dog, Boba, who I think is American Bulldog mix, is apparently pregnant and is due to have some puppies. If anybody wants them, we're looking for homes. They'll be ready around Christmas, due around Halloween. It's crazy. Anyway, what else you got?
Congratulations.
Yeah,
now you're a father, grandfather. I don't know.
Yeah, I've
We're
never
just-
experienced this. It's crazy.
We just have a few more minutes left. We're going a little bit over
Yeah, sure.
time, so I hope everybody can stay with us just for a few more minutes. If you do have a question, please use the Q&A button, and we'll be happy to get it to Mike. My question for you, Mike, is if somebody hasn't really developed an exercise program, I would say, where would you have them begin? Especially, if they're newly diagnosed and they don't have a workout regimen per se.
That's a
Where do you
great
suggest
point.
they start?
I think there are a few places. Probably the easiest would be to see what kind of Parkinson related organizations are in your community, because they're going to have already a good list of resources. But in the absence of that, right? If you didn't have that, you could certainly see a physical therapist, and any would be better than none. But a physical therapist that has done maybe like the LSVT big certification, it gives additional training for Parkinson disease, or the POWER Parkinson Wellness Recovery program that a lot of physical therapists are trained in. I'm sure you can find personal trainers too. I know that the American College of Sports Medicine has specialty population training for chronic conditions. The training in that, I think, for Parkinson's exists. It may not be as in-depth, but it's still something. And there are great resources, like the Parkinson Foundation has a great infographic on key components, at least 150 minutes a week of physical activity to slow the progression, and looking at how much of that could and should be aerobic, how much of that could and should be strength training. There are a lot of people like me you could probably set up virtual sessions with that wouldn't be physical therapy, but could be, wellness planning. Or, even your neurologist might have some good suggestions on people to reach out to. But the idea is, first, if in the absence of any of that, if you could just find something that you like to do and that you can do consistently and safely, that's a heck of a start. Because I know sometimes with all the information that's out there, it's easy to get an analysis paralysis. And in my mind, as long as it's safe, any action is better than none. And so even if you're somebody that says, well, gosh, I like to walk, good, or if you're somebody that says, I don't want to do boxing or Tai Chi or any of that nonsense, but I'll get on my recumbent bike or something, great. That's a start, and you can work from there. Also, the Davis Phinney Foundation has a wealth of resources. So does, the Parkinson Foundation and the Michael J. Fox Foundation. There are a lot of places out there now that are putting out pamphlets on exercise fundamentals, exercise essentials. And I know even the Brian Grant Foundation is trying to train more exercise professionals to get caught up on what to do. So there's a lot out there.
Mike, I had two quick questions for you. Your opinion on reflexology and massage?
Reflexology, I know very little about. Massage, I know, first of all, it feels good. And that can help people relax, which can help them feel better, even if it's short term. But also, my experience in PT is, trigger points in muscle tissue are more common because of dystonia and rigidity with Parkinson's. And they can't always be stretched away or massaged away, but it certainly doesn't hurt to try to get a massage first and see if that frees up some motion for you. If it does, well, then you can exercise after, and that'll let you take advantage of that new range of motion. To extremes of it, if medication's not enough and if massage or exercise is not enough, well, then you could look at things with your movement disorder specialist, like Botox injections or tendon releases. That's kind of a last resort. the first resort is first try some aerobic exercise, because a lot of times that can kind of wash away some of that stiffness. But then a massage certainly plays a role in freeing up some motion. Reflexology, I don't know enough about to speak intelligently on. I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's great. I have a little history. I found it very beneficial myself. But
Okay.
And just for people who don't know about boxing, it's not contact boxing, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. You see a lot of stuff about boxing with Parkinson's. Hopefully you're at a gym where it's non-contact, which means you're not hitting each other. It's okay to hit the punching bag under supervision as long as you don't have osteoporosis or an active injury. But what I find with boxing is it hits that sweet spot of intensity. There's a lot of repetition that's involved. And one of my peers here in town at UT Southwestern, Dr. Stacy Sheeran, she and I were able to do some research for 6 years now and on boxing and how it helps people with Parkinson's. And we found improvements in people, both in step length, in walking speed, in postural control. And the biggest deal was in reactive balance. So planned balance, you know what's coming, you've got a plan for it. Most people I see with Parkinson's have pretty good planned balance strategies, but reactive balance is a different story. If they have to get out of the way of something, maybe that's because of the rigidity. Maybe that's because of bradykinesia, slowness of movement. Maybe that's because of bradyphrenia, slowness of thinking, sometimes of cognition. But what we found is when you hit the punching bag, the laws of physics say it pushes back, and that forces you with every punch to train reactive balance. So some places do a whole lot of balance training drills, which is good, but even just hitting that punching bag and getting back up into fighting stance can be a big deal. And some people who maybe can't stand without support or an assistive device can still do it from a chair and work on postural control. Or, in our study groups, I love it because we get these grad students to put a gait belt on people and help hold them up. That can be helpful. Or I've even got some folks who, with punching bags like this one, it's another product I'm not getting paid to plug here, but this is one that I wish I did. This is one that's put out by Century Martial Arts. It's an adjustable height Wave Master punching bag. It's got, I think, 18 gallons of water in the base, or you can put sand in the base. So that's a lot of force that it takes to move this thing. So I find people in class sometimes whose balance is a little bit off, they can hang on with one arm and hit this thing pretty well. And then over time, they can work towards maybe hovering an arm over it in case they need to stabilize. Or I've seen other places that do a great job if they have, nice walls that don't have a bunch of stuff on them, of having people lean against the wall to start boxing with some support nearby too. But that way there's less getting really thrown off from reactive balance.
Well, I know, gentlemen, we could probably continue this conversation for 2 more hours, but I know everybody's time is very precious. And thank you so much, Dr. Mike, for giving us a wealth of information today. We certainly appreciate your time, your commitment to the community, your passion to help folks with Parkinson's. And we certainly appreciate everybody's staying with us and their attention for today's event. Any closing comment?
Well, it's my pleasure to do this. I sure appreciate the opportunity to spread the word. I know important people in my life that had Parkinson's years ago. For example, my grandmother had atypical Parkinson's, PSP. And we just didn't know as much as we do now. So I love getting the opportunity to get out and say, hey, here's what we know. And hopefully you found something helpful. If not, keep looking. There's plenty of stuff. And if I can be helpful to anybody, let me know. Reach out. It'll be great.
Well, thank you.
You're available at tribewellness.org, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yep, I put it in the
tribunals.
chat and we'll make sure it's in the materials too. I'm sure it's on your slides and,
Yeah, I've got about 2 hours more slides. if you
okay.
want. So-
We'll have to have you back.
You'll have you back, Mike.
Session 1 of 3. Well, and thank you all so much for supporting our Parkinson's Social Network program webinar today. Please visit the website, parkinsonsocialnetwork.org, and join our newsletter, and you'll find out about more great speakers just like Dr. Mike. Thank you all so much, and have a wonderful day. Take care and be well.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mike. Be
Bye.
well. Bye-bye.
Bye.